With Operation Deep Healing in progress, I thought I would make a quick video on something I think Deepwoken absolutely needs to address by the time it comes out. Deepwoken's worst weapon in the entire game, and the worst weapon class as a whole, being rapiers. I'm currently live at twitch.tv/Reaconteur, so come check me out over there, and if you enjoy, make sure to subscribe, since basically nobody's subscribed at all. I pretty much have 0 subscribers, so press that red button. Now let's get straight into it. Alright, so the first thing I want to cover, which is going to be the rapier, is just, it's the absolute worst weapon class in the entire game, with irrelevant talents that don't really benefit it in any way, and the developers don't really seem to understand how rapiers work in real life, so I want to go over some of that, okay? But also, this was originally going to be a video on a bunch of stuff that I wanted for Operation Deep Healing, and then I wrote the script for this and realized, damn, I have a lot to say about rapiers, so I'll probably make a part 2 going over more stuff that needs fixing. But anyway, what's wrong with rapier? First of all, it's just a pretty bad take on what rapiers are like in real life. Well, yes, they're primary thrusting weapons. Most rapiers are still bladed for quick slashes on lightly armored opponents, but the biggest thing that rapiers don't do in Deepwoken that they do in real life is leveraging range. Rapiers are long, they have long range thrusts. The stances that rapier fighters take leverage that length even more, but in Deepwoken, rapiers have about average length for medium weapons, which is dumb. I think that's dumb and lame, right? Especially because they kind of removed the only thing that rapiers had, which was enchant stacking on critical. So people would go like detonation rapier, like I still use to this day, and you'd hit 1 crit and it would activate 4 detonation stacks. Really strong, so they completely removed it. They didn't even slightly nerf it, they just removed it. You can no longer doing that, right? And the weapon has no characteristics of a real rapier. Like, why is the weapon made for leveraging a distance advantage, not given that distance advantage? That's like 90% of what rapiers are known for, and you guys didn't do it. Now, seeing as how the devs specifically said they wanted to make changes to make playing weapons different, they should also change up some of the rapier's talents and properties. For example, some of the talents don't make sense, and the ones that, you know, have additives were just combinations of 2 talents. Like, let's look at the Duelist Lunge talent, which is actually 2 talents, which originally was 2 talents, but they got fused into 1. The 2 effects are the original talent, where after landing a crit, your next running attack has +2 stud range. Not a bad idea, but making this specifically running attacks kind of sucks, making it minimally usable. If it affected regular M1s, it would be good, but like running attacks, man, really? They're super slow as well. The rapier running M1 is really telegraphed and slow. It's never hitting ever. Maybe you could get people off guard with this because they will expect you to be out of range, and then the +2 studs could get you something, but it really doesn't come into play that much. And the other effect it gives, which was its own talent at one point, is running attacks deal 35% more posture damage. This was its own talent for some reason. Not only is doing more posture damage on running attacks like the most useless thing ever, the rapier does so little posture damage because it basically has the characteristics of a light weapon with, you know, the speed of a medium weapon. Adding talents that increase it in its posture damage are kind of useless because the additive posture damage is never enough to make a difference or get you guard breaks and stuff like that. Like the second rapier talent that increases your posture damage and chip damage by 30% and 20% as long as your health is above 70%. This is just a terribly designed talent for rapier. I am not pressuring blocks as a light player, and I'm not pressuring blocks as a rapier player. Maybe as a dagger player, right? Spamming M1, maybe I would pressure blocks. They would get some good chip or posture damage if these worked on dagger, but these are rapier talents and they'd suit great hammer players more. But for some reason, all 3 of the rapier talents revolve around chip and posture damage. Bitch, I am not playing to hit people's guard. I'm already using the lowest DPS weapon in the game. Yes, it is, by the way. And speaking of base stats, my Skull Piercer, which is the Hallowtide rapier, does less damage and has comparable swing speed to medium weapons, without any of the pros of using a medium weapon like the talents. And before someone comments, why don't you just stop using rapier? Because I always get someone like that in the comments. That doesn't, like, how is that a solution? That doesn't make the weapon better, you know? Like, it's like, yeah, I could stop using the rapier, but then the class is just irrelevant because I like rapiers as a weapon. It's just poorly executed in Deepwoken. So I have some better talent ideas and reworks that maybe they could implement for deep healing. First of all, let's increase the rapier range. Not as much of a spear, but, you know, more than basically every other weapon in the game. I should have considerably more range than a medium sword user, and probably a bit more speed as well, given the fact that I'm not swinging a whole ass sword around. But for some reason, I'm doing about the same damage as fists with less swing speed and only a little bit more range. I don't think that's fair. And then the talents it has should revolve around its range and either bleed or armor piercing properties. You know, 2 things that thrusts in weapons generally cause more of than slashes, but unless they wanted to change up the rapier and give it some slashes, then they could maybe make it a medium weapon instead, but I'd Prefer if they didn't do that, because if they made it a medium weapon, then we're kind of in a weird spot where all rapier builds just need a wipe, okay? So first talent idea. The first talent I had was giving rapier a sweet spot sort of thing, where if you hit someone at the perfect range, you get a bonus in bleed damage and or penetration for hitting them near the tip of your blade. This would reward good spacing and promote less spammy mage gameplay and promote more M1 usage, which I think Deepwoken needs to incentivize more because mages are just so boring. Which I think it's something that I would like more anyway, because I prefer to M1 over just like spamming mantras, and I like to utilize my mantras in conjunction with my M1s instead of pressing 2 through 8 on my keyboard and hoping that I can spam harder than they can parry. My next talent idea is active repost. Striking an opponent directly after a parry could deal extra damage and have a bit more swing speed or something. Rapiers are pretty counter-based weapons in real life, so I thought it'd be cool to add this and maybe give it like a unique repost animation for M1ing directly after a parry, where like you parry it and then you swing down and your weapon comes from above your head around and then down onto them, but like slightly faster. It would be a good mix-up tool, which would be good for rapiers because it would change your swing speed per the M1 on a parry, meaning people would have to adapt to it, and it incentivizes M1 gameplay. And my final talent idea would be Patasoto, which is a real technique in which you dodge in place to go for a counterattack. In Deepwoken, it could give you a small M1 counterattack for dodge canceling in place against a swing, or it could make it so like dodge canceling and then M1ing would have another like slightly faster animation, kind of like the active repost talent. This one might be a little bit strong, but when have the devs ever not just made something strong and put like a 20-second to minute long cooldown on it? Like, come on, look at Dazing Finisher. I just realized they removed Dazing Finisher, but yeah, that was basically how they nerfed it before they removed it. Also, I don't know why I was talking about Dazing Finisher. I meant Vanishing Follow-Up. I was talking about Vanishing Follow-Up, which they removed and, you know, never added an alternative for. Was a broken talent, but whatever. You get the point. Now, I made all of these ideas for talents based on historical rapier techniques in like 5 minutes, so they're a bit rough, but they remain accurate to the weapon and would provide more varied gameplay for rapier. When rapier was good, basically everyone just went it because it could proc 4 detonations on crit, and they just play a mage build for 90% of the game, spam crits when they could, and do like 80 damage. These talents would incentivize M1 based combat and exercising certain skills, giving it a fundamentally different ideal playstyle from medium weapons. And hopefully rapier wouldn't be literally the worst thing ever anymore, because yes, rapiers are just the worst weapons in the entire game. It's like a mix between medium and light with the worst aspects of both. You do the damage of light with the swing speed of medium with a useless crit at this point because its only upside was ever enchant proccing, and that basically got completely removed, not even like a slight nerf. The only thing the crit is good for now is roll catching, but even then you could just like time your M1s better or use certain mantras that roll catch, and they do a better job than your crit, because the only type of roll catch that this counters is when people specifically roll cancel into you. They roll cancel into your direction and stay in your range, which most people don't do unless they're gonna attack, and a lot of time they have risky moves anyway, so at most you're getting like one hit or hyper armored through your crit and taking more damage anyway. And then on top of all that, I still get people calling me a light ice user and complaining about my build like it wouldn't be 2000% better if I put a dagger on it. It really is the worst of every world. I get the bitching medium and heavy players who don't like daggers complaining at me like I'm using a dagger, and then I also basically am just using a base sword because I'm doing the same DPS as a base sword. Well, technically I'm doing like 15% more because of bleed, but actually I'm doing the same DPS as if I were running the same build with the same heavy or medium stat with a base weapon. Insane. Overall though, I really just feel like the developers don't understand rapiers. Like, I really wish they did more research on their weapons before implementing into the game. And I get why they would add rapiers to the game. Rapiers are popular, they're cool, people like them. But if you guys are going to add weapons to the game, you guys should do some research on how they work in real life, historical techniques, stuff like that, so you can make cool talents off of them. I was able to make 3 talents with like 5 minutes of searching. And even then, it was all stuff that I already knew. And even then, all that stuff that I already knew, I turned into 3 talents in 5 minutes. And you guys gave it 2 talents that are basically irrelevant to how the game is played with this weapon and how this weapon should be used. Because who's pressuring block on rapiers? It doesn't make sense. You guys give talents to spears that benefit them, you guys give talents to medium and heavy weapons that benefit their playstyles, but then you give rapier 2 talents that don't benefit its playstyle at all, 1 talent that half benefits its playstyle because it was literally just a new talent and an old talent combined, and then 1 talent that is alright. We need better stuff for rapiers. It's just lazy work here. But yes, the devs did say that they wanted to make all the weapons fundamentally different to the point where even weapons within the same category would feel completely different. The example they used being kind of striking, they said that stuff like Great Hammer versus Great Axe would feel fundamentally different. Honestly, that's kind of hard to believe because those are probably the 2 most similar weapons as far as structure goes in the entire game, and if you're gonna make those feel fundamentally different, I can't wait to see what they do with stuff like rapier or daggers and all of that. Now, if we're lucky, we might even get stuff like new animations for weapons, because rapiers don't need to be thrusting weapons all the time, by the way. They can slash. Rapiers have 2 edges. They're unicorn blades with a pointed tip. They're thin blades for the thrusts, but they also cut. So maybe we could get stuff like that. Hopefully some new talent stuff that benefits them, and just new properties for the weapon, as well as other weapons. But, you know, this video is about rapiers, so that's all I really wanted to talk about, because I use rapier, and I love rapiers, and I really wish they were good. Alright, I'm not gonna lie, this just ended up being a video about buffing rapier. Originally, it was going to be, like, a video on more stuff that I wanted to see in Operation Deep Healing, but I kind of got a bit distracted, because there's a lot that I have to say about rapier, because it's so bad, and I don't think it deserves to be so bad, because it's such a cool weapon that the developers just kind of neglect terribly. It really is trash as fuck. I get 2 fucks per video to make it PG-13. That's my 2 right there. We're good. Anyway, I'll probably make another video on all the other stuff that I think that the game needs for Operation Deep Healing, but as of now, it's really just rapier is trash, and they need something to make it more viable. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I do have something important here. Sadly, I will not be dropping my mini Christmas album this month. After finishing 3, almost 4 of my songs, right, the audio files got corrupted, and all of my vocal tracks got deleted, and that's too much work for me to redo in any amount of short time. So I'll be making a singular song cover over the next week or so and dropping it in like early February, and then mid to late February I'll release my next song cover. And then I'll drop a full Christmas album in December of this year with like 10 songs, maybe more in it if I'm feeling a little bit extra jolly. But yeah, sorry about that. It'll be released on time for this year anyway, and if I'm feeling, you know, extra jolly, I'll make it extra long. Maybe it'll be like 12 songs or something. Anyway, if you guys want to hear my monthly song covers, buy any tier YouTube membership, and shout out to YouTube members of tier 2 or higher: Green, Brick, High Card, Philip, Delusional Mo, Elstern, Fun Guns, Broccoli, Carlia the Witch, Akio Sugikuni, Burger, Vekazu, V. Corey, Goobka, and Drizzy Drake Fan. Check me out on Twitch. I hope you all enjoyed. Have an amazing day as usual, and goodbye.